On the far edge of the habitable universe, among glittering nebulae and icy rings, orbited the planet Selena 5, a dusty ball of blue-gray color where each sunset lasted exactly 19 hours. There were no luxury megacities or soft sands of resort planets here. Only canyons, abandoned mines, and an old station, Green Ridge, the last outpost of law on the edge of the galaxy. And there, on the main road of broken gravel, stood Sheriff Tiara Kalen, a tall, cool, copper-colored alien with eyes like liquid amber and skilled, flexible hands hidden under a long gray cloak. She was once an elite Federation operative, but chose to serve on Selene 5 as a single agent to forget. No one knew what, but there were rumors that she had once personally neutralized a shadow xenomorph that made even cruiser captains tremble. Every morning, Tiara walked the streets of Green Ridge, greeting the changes. Nomadic miners, cyber farmers, mutated traders, even a strange talking rock named Muck. She maintained order, put out conflicts, and fired accurately from her ancient Solar 7 beamer. But one day, a black ship without signs appeared in the sky, which even the scanners could not detect. It hovered over Shaft #12, and a few hours later, a local resident began to disappear from the city. Without a trace, without noise. Only the air was stable, slightly humming. Tiara knew it was no accident. It was him, the one she had once stopped, but not destroyed. Now she will have to pick up her old star steel blade again, assemble a motley crew, a drunk engineer from the planet Drot, a mysterious girl who can hear thoughts, stones, and even an old droid with a memory virus. And once again, I will become the hero that no one asked for. The night on Selena 5 was deceptively quiet. Under the violet stars, like the embers of a frozen sun, Green Ridge breathed a subdued fear. People did not come out of their shelters. Store windows were automatically darkened. The wind carried away only dust and the smell of ozone. Tiara stood on the roof of the old radio tower looking at the black silhouette of the hovering ship. It didn't move. It didn't even vibrate. Indeed, it was looking. "He's coming back," she whispered to herself. But why? Signal picked up from Shaft #12. Red pulse on wrist transmitter accelerated faster and faster. Code 39. Missing group searched. Last signal came from Brina, young geologist with vision implants. Tiara jumped from the roof, landed softly on the 6 legs of the patrol drone, and jumped to the ground. "Activate security protocol. Shaft 12, now." She was accompanied to the entrance of the mine by a strange girl. Tiara had picked her up a couple of days ago during the pandemic. She didn't speak. She just drew circles on the dusty glass walls and smiled when the wind whispered. Her name was Ilya, and she claimed to be able to hear the voice of the stone. "He's inside," she said suddenly. "Who?" Tiara asked, not expecting an answer. "He who has no face. He who whispers in the void. He has names." Tiara gripped the hilt of her blade. There was a flash, and the star steel glowed a pale blue. It was an ancient weapon, forged from the alloys of dead stars. It clanged in the mechanism of the anomalies. Now it roared. Inside the shaft, the air was heavier, as if the metal wall itself was resisting the intrusion. Suddenly, he appeared before them, a tall figure in black, as if sculpted from shadows. No face, no eyes, just a deep void under the hood. The air around him distorts as if the space is constrained by his presence. "Tiara," the voice hissed, not with sound but with thought. "You are going against the darkness again. You have forgotten that you once gave me your name." The girl squeezed Tiara's hand. "Don't listen, he has no word." "But I have justice," Tiara replied, "and I am the sheriff, even at the end of the world." She rushed into battle. The star steel strike sliced through the air, distorting the space around the hooded figures. Sparks rained from the shaft ceiling. Metal creaked as if the planet itself were protesting. But he dodged, not his body but his shadow, changing shape. Tiara fought in silence. She had not ceased to be afraid to enter the heart. They began to shrink around her, and then Ilya screamed, not with sound, but with light. Her eyes flashed silver, and the rocks of the mine began to speak. Listen, listen, he was here before our names were. He is as old as silence. He wants to forget everything. The shadow retreated, and for a moment Tiara saw. In his chest glowed a mirror, reflecting the memory of her enterprise. The day she first put on the Federation badge, the day she abandoned everything, and the day she told him her name to save the entire sector from poisoning. He was gone, not defeated but temporarily displaced. The shaft froze. The girl fell unconscious. Lights flickered in the inner tunnel. Someone was still inside. If you want to go to the end, you will have to remember everything. The voice came from a radio transmitter that had long since been switched off. It was Milo, Tiara's old droid. A few hours later, a strange group of 4 gathered in a shelter under an old antenna. Milo 17 is a droid made up of scraps from different eras, with a damaged memory but a heart full of music. He used to write songs until he downloaded a virus, causing him to forget one melody a day. He said, "Maybe it's for the best. But for now I remember. I'm with you, Sheriff." Drot Braska was an engineer from the planet Drot, with open burns and a mechanical heart. He was cynical, always drunk, but he knew how to pick any lock, fix any ancient weapon, and curse on 7 worlds. "I've been in prisons, in voids, and in the belly of a black star, but this smells like the beginning of the end." Ilya lay silently, recuperating. The stone slowly revolved around her, as if she were the center of an invisible attraction. Sometimes she muttered in her sleep, "Words, he is words." Tiara looked at them and felt, this is her team. Not heroes, not saviors, just forgotten, broken, but alive. And that's what it takes to fight the one who steals everything that makes you, you. "We need to get to the Forgotten Mouth," Tiara said. "Where to?" Drot responded. "To where he began his hunt, where I once offended him, and where I lost my name." Their path led them through ash valleys, past dead cities inhabited by echoes. Every step brought them to a moment where reality was thin as film, where every word could become a spell, and every word a trap. There, in the pulsating fog, the mirror of names opened, an ancient artifact capable of returning a lost essence, or a carrier, if there is no essence in it. And Tiara knew that to defeat the shadow, she had to remember, even if it meant breaking her. The journey took 5 Earth cycles. Dusty differences gave way to hanging rocks. Fields of scorched crystals reflected the only stars in the sky. This was the edge of the map, drawn only by the voices of ancient drones and the whispers of dying satellites. They observed the mouths of forgotten evening when no star shone. The air trembled. Space here breathed as if alive. Everything was visible in a dream, the one in which you know you are asleep but cannot wake up. It led them. She spoke without opening her mouth, and the stones under her feet parted. "This is not a place. This is a word, abandoned, nameless." The mirror of names rose before them. Not a mirror in the usual sense, but a funnel of light, in the center of which floated reflections of other people's memories. It sang, thinly, sadly, like a voice that has forgotten why it sings. "You must go through it," Milo said. "Only you, only the one who gave up this name voluntarily." The tiara had changed. She had thrown off her cloak. Only the armor, the blade, and the eyes that trembled with the reflection of her fear remained. "If I don't come back, we'll still follow you," Drot said hoarsely. "At least for the alcohol you've hidden." Tiara stepped inside. There was no space inside. There were only rooms made from her memory. One is her childhood on Hestia 2, how she caught the fireflies at birth, whose faces she had almost forgotten. In another, her first mission on the planet Nargol, where she refused to execute an innocent. In the end, she stood before him at the moment when she gave her name. "Do you want to remember?" he asked, standing in front of her. "Do you want to be yourself again? But you're different now. You're a sheriff, not a girl, not a soldier. Your name is different now." "No," Tiara whispered. My name is everything I was, everything I love, everything I've lost, and everything I fight for. And then she repeated it. A name that sounded like a light in the darkness. A name that sang throughout the centuries. Tiara Kai Liansha, guardian of the stars. And the mirror exploded with light. Outside, the darkness thickened. The shadow's ship landed on the ground. From its depths emerged the faceless ones, creatures with only eyes full of melancholy. They walked silently, and with every step they erased the flowers from the stones. But when the light of the mirror broke through the sky, when Tiara came out, not just with a blade, but with all of herself, everything changed. She spoke in words that made the darkness itself retreat. I am Tiara Kai. I have a name, I have a word, and I am the sheriff of this land. He appeared again, bigger, blacker than before, but now his voice was shaking. You remember? Which means I am forgotten. Then Ilya stood next to Tiara. And I remember. We all remember, and that means you're not winning. Milo began to sing, an old song he could not forget. Drought raised a cannon made from a mine pine forest. The stones began to speak. The light hummed, and the darkness began to disappear. Green Ridge was once again a town where one could sleep at night. The shadow was gone, not destroyed, but weakened, displaced by the word that was known, remembered, cherished. Tiara wasn't just a sheriff anymore. She was a guardian of memory, and with her, Drought, Milo, the team that remembered. Because in this world full of oblivion, sometimes the most important thing is to just remember who you were, and not let yourself be erased. It has been 39 cycles since the darkness retreated. Green Ridge was alive again. Merchants from the edges of the world, warriors, wandering philosophers, time explorers, all flocked to where Tennessee once stood. And in the center of town, under the memorial tower, a living star now burned, a shard of the mirror of names, a beacon for all who seek themselves. Tiara was sitting at the edge of the cliff, looking at the sky when the signal came. Transmission encrypted. Source unknown. Coordinates off map. Only one phrase appeared on the screen. We remember too, but they come for us. We need your word. She looked at Ilya, who had already grown up. Now, there were not only whispers of stones in her voice, but also her own words. Is this a call? She asked. It's a request, Tiara replied, and perhaps a warning. Milo Drought's ship, now slightly improved, flying and still with character, crossed the boundaries of known sectors and entered an area designated only as Elchi 7. There is the source of the planet Hell-Tyr, in the past, the world of the chroniclers, beings who kept ancient words and knowledge. Only ruins and ashes remain of them. In orbit, I saw a broken satellite that slowly repeated the same thing. We kept the words. We didn't have time to leave. He is here, but not the one you knew. In the center of the ruins, Tiara found a second mirror. But unlike the one she had passed on Selene, this one was dark and noticeable. I'll freeze. This is him? No, Tiara whispered. It's different. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the mirror. But it was not the shadow. It was a woman, clad in armor that seemed to have been forged from tears and the sands of time. Her eyes were blind, but she spoke with clarity. I am Sena of the First Circle, guardian of the Word before the time of darkness. Why are you here? Tiara asked. Because the Second War for Memory is beginning. He was only a messenger, and now the one who writes oblivion is introduced. Sena said, the universe is made not only of stars and dust, but also of the sand of names, an invisible substance that absorbs the memory, language, and essence of a being. If the sand is exposed, names are erased, and entire civilizations disappear as if they had never existed. He was the Word Eater, Sena said, but he who writes oblivion is its creator. He does not steal names. He rewrites reality as if he were the author of the entire universe. And Tiara understood. Their battle was only a chapter, and now begins the book where the stakes are the whole of history. To find the writer of oblivion, One must find his pigment pot, an ancient artifact created in a star forge during the light. It is hidden in a single grain of sand orbiting dead stars in a world where no one has ever returned. The team is on the road again. Tiara is the bearer of the name.
Ilum, the keeper of stones.
Milo, singer of memory. Drat, master of mechanisms. Sena, ghost of the first circle. A star labyrinth awaits them, where every word is a choice, every name is a spell, and your lie can become the truth. Tiara's ship tore through space, fractured like a broken mirror. They entered the Xi'an-Reth sector, also known as the Labyrinth of History, a realm where any fiction can become real, and the truth crumbles if repeated too loudly. "The rules are changed here," Sena said, looking out the window where worlds flashed by like pages. "This is the work of the writer of Oblivion. He doesn't destroy, he rewrites." "What if you don't fit into his story?" Drat asked. "Then you are gone," Milo replied. "You become nothing but an empty expression between words." They landed on the first page, the world of the Sayed Lodges. The city was magnificent, towers of sound, streets of light, people shining, almost perfect. Here everyone knew their place, their history, their role, and everyone was smiling. Too perfect. "They live in a story," Ilya whispered. "They think it's all true, but in reality, they're just writing in someone else's text." Tiara stopped a boy who was passing by. "What is your name?" He thought for a moment and then smiled. "What would you like me to call you?" Sena winced. The sand of names itself is infected here. It has spoken, it has been registered, and now these people do not belong to themselves. In the central square stood the statue of the author, a robed figure with a pen instead of hands. Paint dripped from her eyes. Underneath was the inscription, "The words belong to me, and everything that is named by them is mine." Tiara clutched the blade of star steel. It trembled, as if alive. "We'll get these people out of the story," she said. "But first, we'll find sand." Under the city, at the door of the lodge, they found a door without a lock. One could only pass through it, said the truth, which you believe in so much that it becomes stronger than the lie. Il came first. "I know that I'm not simply declining. I am the echo of the stone. I remember even what is forgotten." The door shook. She let him in. Drat. "I'm a coward who fled the battlefield, but I'm alive, and I choose to stand, now." Cute. "I forgot all my songs, but I remember why I sang." Sienna. "I'm a ghost, but I'm not finished yet." Tiara came last. I said, "I am the one who gave up her name, and returned it, because even the darkness cannot eclipse the one who remembers himself." The door opened. They entered the heart, and there, in the black silence, the grain of sand was spinning. Tiny, like a drop, but in it, entire worlds were spinning. It was the primordial point of the writer of Oblivion, the pigment with which he began to write lies. "If we destroy it," Drat began. "No," said Sina. "It must be rewritten. Only the true word can defeat Oblivion." Ilya reached out her hand to sand. The stones around her began to tremble. She spoke. "There is light in all worlds. It may be weak, but it is real. And as long as I am there to remember, even fiction can become truth." The worlds inside sand grain began to change, from distorted to whole. People, forgotten, began to enter history. And somewhere far away, in a throne room of ink, the writer of Oblivion froze. He felt that the pen was no longer obeying him. Someone was writing in spite of him. He announced from his shadows. His face was smooth as a page, empty. "You cannot win," he said. "I am the very possibility of forgetting." Tiara stepped forward. "Then we are a reminder." And he struck with the word. Worlds shook. Where once there had been fragments of memory, stars now flared. Forgotten civilizations were recalled. The archives of the survey suddenly filled with memories of vanished names, lost songs, unfinished beings. The grain of sand in Ilya's hands glowed brighter than any star reactor. She held it like the heart of the universe, fragile but alive. and the writer of Oblivion stepped into their reality. "Everything you do is pointless," he said, his voice emotionless, like a reminder coming to an empty box. "Your word is just dust on my page. I am the author. I write, you are the characters." Tiara answered calmly, "No, we are storytellers." They stood before them, Tiara, Il, Milo, Drat, Sena, and behind each of them, countless destinies, names, songs, phrases, memories. Everything that makes us who we are. The darkness around the writer thickened, turning into ink titans, creatures of untruth. They descended upon the team. Drat held the flank, shouting the forgotten names of lost ships, each word driving the enemy back. Milo sang a hymn of an ancient language, which caused the painted walls to fly apart. Sena wove webs of light from her memories, a reflection of the first time. Il held sand above her head, and her voice already sounded like a woman's, not a girl's. "You can't rewrite something that knows your meaning." Tiara approached the writer. His face began to crack like paper. "You lost. You thought you controlled the sand of names, but you forgot one thing." "Which one?" he whispered, collapsing. "That every story continues as long as someone remembers it, and we remember." She raised the blade and it dissolved, not from the blow, but from the unexpected meaning. Its story was over. When everything became quiet, there was silence, but not empty, but alive. The cosmos seemed to freeze, inventing a new rhythm, as if everything had found its breath again. The grain of sand was returned to its place, not as a weapon, but as an anchor. It was no longer an activist for anyone. It was hidden in the heart of Green Ridge, beneath the Tower of Names, where anyone could come and remember. Sena was gone, her work done. She faded away like the last light of the sunset, whispering, "Cherish what was said, cherish the present." Milo started recording songs again. Drat opened a repair shop and for the first time in many years wrote his name on the door. And Tiara and Il, now together, became the guardians of the sand. They did not seek war, but if somewhere names suddenly began to disappear, they came and reminded, as long as we are remembered, we exist. As long as we call another friend, we will not disappear. Deep beneath the Tower of Names, where the grain of sand was kept, Ilya sat alone. The stones around her slept, but uneasily. They stirred in their sleep as if they heard something far away that looked. "Do you feel it?" she asked Pesky, holding out her palm. He answered with a shudder. "One word, very ancient, not in the language of men, not in the language of the stars, in the language of the blood of stone. Kia." He'll opened his eyes. Her pupils dilated like a gate to another world. "Is this my name, or the name of the one who calls me?" Tiara knew immediately that Isle had not merely heard a call. She had responded. This was no ordinary signal or anomaly. This was a connection that went deeper than even the word. "You must go," Tiara said. "I believe the path is yours alone." "And you?" asked Ilya. "I'll be there, but you have to go first and alone." It flowed to the ridge of the Silent Ones, the most ancient ridge of dead stone creatures, founders, petrified gods, colonial on the borders of space and time. Legend said that under them sleeps the first stone, the progenitor of the entire planet, all matter, and all who hear the inner voice of the world. Darrow found the entrance, and the name on the stone arch carved from the inside, Kea, daughter of the heart. It was not dark inside the ridge. The stones sang, not with sound, but with sensations. Il went deeper and deeper until he reached the central chamber, where a female figure rose from the rock, half crystal, half living flesh. She opened her eyes. "I am Kea, the one who spat at you, the one you could have been, and who you once were." "I don't understand." "You were born of stone, not figuratively, literally. You are a fragment of the heart of the universe, created to be a vessel for memory when words begin to fade." Il fell to her knees. "I'm not a human?" "No," Kea replied. "You are a song that has become a body." While Ilya was revealing his essence, the Echo Hunters appeared on the border of the system. Ancients who had lost their names and now seek to absorb someone else's memory in order to become a creation of someone again. They sensed her. "The blood of the stone has awakened," their messenger hissed. "It must not remember everything." Tiara, receiving an alarm signal from one of the Green Ridge crystals, jumped up. "She's in danger. They're coming for her." "Then we're going too," said Milo. "Don't let them take her voice," Drought added. "I've gotten used to it." Kea was gone. Her essence had gone into Elia, returning to him who now knew more. She stood in the center of the room, her skin cracking, not with pain, but with blossoming. A glow was coming from within. "I'm not just ill. I am Kea, the voice of the heart." And at that moment, when the first hunters broke into the hall, Il raised his hands and spoke about the wall. The stone stood up in defense. The earth remembered its child. And Tiara's ship had already descended from the heavens, with a blade of star steel at the ready. The silent ridge trembled. The stone sang anxiously, low, like the throat of a giant warning of a storm. Ki stood in the center of the circle, surrounded by the echo hunters. Their bodies were made of nothingness, the ashes of names, the broken histories. They did not scream. They waited for her to speak, to hear her voice and drag it into oblivion. But Kea, who had once been ill, was no longer afraid. "You came to my voice." "We've come for our memory," growled the hunter's herald. "Give it back! You have too much of it!" "I don't have a memory. I have a song. It's not for you. It's for the universe." She raised her hands and began to